Pegawai from Unit Pathology Perubatan, Transfusi Hospital Bentong, Pahang Darul Makmur. None other than Miss T.S. Komate, anak perempuan Rayama, Chemical Pathology Science Officer. So our lovely lady obtained her Bachelor Science degree from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, majoring in Biochemistry in 2009, and Master in Food Science, also from University Kebangsaan Malaysia in 2014. So Ms. Komate is an active member of Malaysian Associations of Biochemists and began her career in science officer since 2015. So I'm back to the old days again. Okay, her recent involvement are as a coordinator for testing committee, Secretariat of Hospital Transfusion Committee, and importantly, she is the of Hospital Fire Safety Committee and as well as Internal Auditor for Hospital Accreditation Committee. So ladies and gentlemen, enough said for the moment. So we are very proud to welcome to you Miss T.S. Komate, anak perempuan Rayama, for her presentations entitled of Risk Management in Medical Laboratory Activities. So the floor is yours, Miss Komate. You can start now. Oh, we cannot hear your voice, Ms. Komate. Did you unmute your microphone? Can you try it again? Ladies and gentlemen, I think then. Oh yeah, okay. We can hear you now.
Thank you, Tizawar.
Okay.
Okay, a very good morning to everyone. And thank you to Puan Jane for the kind introduction. For your information, Puan Jane is my senior from Hospital Lit Oshas. So she helped me a lot and I learned a lot from her also for risk management, JKKP, HIREC, and so on. So without further ado, I'll start with my presentation. So if everyone can hear me very clearly, so I can proceed. So any update from the chat? Can anyone hear me? Is my voice clear? Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, I'm Komate Ramaya, Science Officer from Hospital Bentong. So I would like to present management in medical laboratory activity based. Okay, this session more towards sharing session. So I'm going to share how I implemented risk management in Hospital Bentong for laboratory, and I also coordinator for risk management committee of Hospital Bentong. So I have implemented the risk management in other units and wards also. So I'll share here. So these are the topics that I'll be covering: the requirement, establishing context and risk identification, risk assessment, risk analysis, risk treatment and effectiveness, and the new requirement in MS ISO 15189. Okay, so this is the basic definition. I think everyone by right know already. Okay, risk management is not new. Actually, it's already been established a few years back, but currently it's become area of concern. So especially in healthcare. So what is risk management? It's a systematic approach to identify, assess, and understand risk in order to guide further appropriate management decision and actions. So for further actions, for further management, all these things we need to have a risk management. Okay, and then second definition is to minimize the potential harm of a risk event by implementing strategies and action to control or reduce the risk. So actually we cannot eliminate the risk 100%. So that's why we are always using the term of reducing, minimizing or mitigating the risk. So both are from the Manus et al. 2016. Okay, why managing risk is important? Risk management protects and adds value to our organizations and its stakeholders through supporting the organization's objectives. So our objectives in hospital or in laboratory is actually what is our objective? Our main objective is our end product. So our end product in lab is our results. So what we want in our results? So we want maximum accuracy in our results. So that is our main objective. So to achieve our main objective, we need to reduce the risk. We need to have a minimal risk so that we can have a maximum accuracy in our results. So it should be about the management, not avoidance of the risk. As I mentioned earlier, we cannot avoid, we cannot eliminate the risk 100%. So there will be some residual risk. It will be stay in our organization. So what we can do is we continue monitoring the risk so that we keep the risk at a minimal level. Okay, it should have to prioritize work in a fast-moving context. Okay, meaning that we need to prioritize our risk so that we know which risk to address first. Okay, for prioritization, there are a few ways you can use to prioritize the risk in your settings. Okay, risk management needs to become a style of thought and should definitely not be a mere paper case. Bukan for audit, bukan untuk simpan dalam file ke record tak ada. It should be, we should implement risk management throughout our work process in lab. Okay, risk management ni, we have a lot of methods. Okay, tak ada salah, tak ada betul, and as long as you follow the basic method in risk management. So let's say after this session, jangan ingat saya punya cara and you punya cara adalah beza. Jangan ingat cara yang you pakai itu salah. So there is no wrong and no mistake as long as you follow the basic requirement in risk management. If you attend 10 different risk management course, you will learn 10 different risk management methods. So don't worry about that. So it's just a sharing session. So it may become a guide for your improvement. If you think that whatever I'm practicing is not reliable, you can inform me also. Okay, for approaches to risk management. So how we can carry out risk management? There is two ways we can carry out risk management in our settings. First is a proactive method. Second is reactive. Okay, proactive is, okay, there is no incident happen. You are proactively thinking that if the incident happen, what will happen to your organization? For example, your analyzer breakdown, but previously your analyzer is running smoothly. Tak pernah breakdown, tak pernah ada downtime. But what will happen in a long run? It might break down. So there will be a downtime. So what you can do? So that is proactively you are thinking so that if anything happens in future, you know what to do. Your staff knows what to do. Okay, reactive means the incidents already happened. So you are reacting on that so that the impact that you will receive will be reduced. So that is reactive. So usually reactive we use for complaints, incident reports, and so on. So that means the incidents already happened or any disasters. So previously in last year we had a UPS breakdown. So after the UPS breakdown, my whole lab, my staffs all fall sick. due to sulfuric acid that comes out leaking from the UPS. So all these things we react on it. Earlier, we never think of that. If UPS break down, it will affect the health of my staffs. So all these things we react on the incidents. Okay, risk is the chance or probability that a person will be harmed by exposure to hazard or hazardous situation. Okay, risk ni actually you can calculate the period of exposure. If you expose too long, and the risk will be high. If you expose very little, like 5 minutes in a month, so the risk will be low risk. But you hari-hari expose, the risk will be very high. So the risk actually is a combination of likelihood. Likelihood adalah kekerapan of the occurrence or of a harm and the severity of that harm. Severity is impact lah, keterokan dia. So yang saya warna merahkan likelihood and severity itulah we will use to calculate risk. So it will be easier to see in these mathematical terms. So how we calculate likelihood times impact. So likely adalah kekerapan perkara tu berlaku, impact tu kalau berlaku, and what is the impact, apa keterokan dia. So two things are likelihood and severity. So for likelihood, saya cakaplah kekerapan berlaku, severity adalah impact. Okay, so for the impact pada outcome from an event such as severity of an injury or health of people or damage to property or insult to the environment. So here kita ada banyak sangat impact, banyak sangat risk. Boleh jadi financial risk, impartiality risk, risk to patient, risk to people, risk to staff, all. But I'll focus on only on patient related sahaja in this session. Actually we should go for more wider risk, but I have no time. If let's say in 1 hour I only cover patient safety. Okay, 8.5.2 from our standard. If anyone has standard, you can refer the standard. So acting on risk and opportunities for improvement. Okay, pergi dekat the first paragraph. The laboratory shall prioritize. Kalau ada shall, we know lah what to do is a mandatory kan. Prioritize, that means you suka ke tak suka, we need to prioritize the risk and act on the identified risk. So you should have a way to prioritize your risk in your settings. Okay, action taken to address risk shall be proportional to the potential impact on laboratory examination results. Itu yang saya kata, our outcome is our end product is the result. So we have to stay a maximum accuracy on the results as well as patients and personnel. Okay, kalau patient safety. Personal safety. Normally for personal safety, we will do high rank. So actually high rank and the one risk assessment we are doing activity based, there is no big difference, but in hospital Bentong I separate it. If I say high rank mean my staff knows that's a staff safety, so they know that they need to do high rank. If I say patient safety and they know activity based risk assessment, so it will make my life easier, because if let's say I generally say risk assessment, they'll be get confused what I'm asking. So that's why I always separated it. Patient safety and staff safety. So today I will focus on only patient safety. Okay, and then the second part, the laboratory shall record the decisions made and action taken on risk and opportunities. So whatever you do in your risk assessment, your risk analysis, or risk evaluation, or your risk management, everything you need to record. Shall. Laboratory shall record. That means no other choice, you have to record everything. So the easiest way for you to record is forms, use of forms or use of checklists. So if you use a form, you have to register the form under your core procedures. If you use a checklist, then you use your checklist, but you have to have a system to record all your decisions under risk management. Okay, and then okay, the third part. The laboratory shall integrate and implement actions on identified risk and improvement opportunities into its management system and evaluate their effectiveness. Okay, so once you already implement all your control measures, all your risk controls, all your risk treatment activities, all your corrective actions, all your preventive action, whatever terms you use, you already implemented. So at the end, you have to evaluate the effectiveness. That's called monitoring part. So how we can monitor? So that one also is up to you, whether you want to have an audit, surveillance audit to monitor, or you want to have a form, or you want to check on your KPIs, on your NIA, whatever it is. Follow your hospital setting and follow your core procedure. There are a lot of ways for monitoring. Okay, straight go to the note 2. Okay, not note 1, the second part, note 2. Although this document requires that the laboratory identifies and address risk, there is no requirement for any particular risk management method. Okay, so there is no particular risk management method. That means you are free to use any risk management method in your setting as long as you comply to the basic risk management procedures. So laboratory can use ISO 22367 and ISO 35001 for a guidance. So in my hospital, so I follow ISO 22367, which I feel very easy for me to implement in a smaller hospital like Hospital Bentong. Okay, so this is the risk assessment where I split into two for make my life easier in Hospital Bentong so that my staff knows which one I'm asking from them. So IRAC, as I mentioned earlier, is for staff safety. Activity based, I use for patient safety. So both IRAC and activity based, I have 5 steps. IRAC, I have 5 steps, and activity based, that for patient safety, I have 5 steps. Okay, and then we go to the 5 steps for the IRAC first. Okay, work process. From the work process, we will identify the hazard. And from the hazard, I will calculate the risk. And from the calculated risk, we will go for the risk control, use the control measurements, control measures. And last part is review. So this is I summarize all the risk management method in 5 steps. So that my staff remember what are the 5 steps, they know what to tell. Okay, when you check for activity based, I never identify hazard. So hazard identification comes under hierarchy. So in activity based, from the work process, I will direct calculate the risk. Following the same formula, likelihood times severity. And from the risk, I'll go for risk prioritization. Yes, our standard mentioned that we need to prioritize, mandatory, right? So I'll go for the risk prioritization. So for risk prioritization pun ada beberapa method that you can follow. So for me here, I follow risk registry. So risk registry you can use, or risk grading. Okay, some hospitals you can see they will have risk grading forms. So you can use either one. And some hospital I've seen they have RPN, risk prioritization number. So they have a even advanced method that calculate their prioritization. So it's up to you, whatever you want to use is up to you, because our standard never fixed a specific method for risk management. So if you are using RPN calculation, is proceed with the RPN calculation, but here I prefer risk registry. Okay, and then after that I'll go for risk control. So for risk control, I use risk treatment. So when you see the hierarchy risk control is a control measurement. So what is a control measurement? Is the pyramid here. So for hierarchy, I use this pyramid. For risk management, I didn't use the risk pyramid. So I have a different risk treatment. So later I'll go we go one by one what is under the risk treatment. Okay, and then last one is review. Okay, so far I think clear, right? Hierarchy and activity based. There are 2 difference in hierarchy and activity based that I'm implementing in Hospital Bentong. That first I identify hazard for hierarchy only, activity based no hazard identification. And then for risk control, I use control measures, the pyramid hierarchy of control for only hierarchy. And for activity based, I have risk treatments. Okay, risk management is a systematic approach. So I simplify it from the MS ISO 22367-2020. Okay, so this is what mentioned in our ISO 15189 standard that we can use as a guide, right? So I use that. So we have to start with risk management plan. Okay, what is the risk management plan? Your core procedure, your policies, your methods, your SOP, whatever plan you have is a risk management plan. So what you should have in a risk management plan? Okay, like how you going to do, who are responsible for the risk management, and what is the organization. So especially we can have organization chart for jawatan kuasa pengurusan risiko in your hospital. So who's supposed to do the risk management, and who are the team, and once it's go for risk control, who's supposed to implement the risk control, who's supposed to monitor the risk control, and what is the timeline of monitoring, because monitoring is not same for all the risks, because you already prioritize the risk, right? When you already prioritize your risk, and your risk monitoring timelines also will be deferred to the your prioritization. So that is why we prioritize our risk, right? So the timeline you have to mention in your core procedure. For example, low risk, you can say yearly monitoring. Medium risk, 6 monthly monitoring. High risk, 3 monthly monitoring. Or even you make it shorter also. Immediate 1 month monthly monitoring. Medium 3 monthly monitoring, and low 6 monthly monitoring. It's up to your settings which one you think that you want to do for your risk management plan. Yeah, after that plan, so here's the 5 steps. Okay, and then the first step is risk analysis, and the second step is risk evaluation. Both risk analysis and risk evaluation is actually risk assessment. Okay, so that's why you can see this in your form under risk assessment column. Actually, in your form, you have risk assessment, risk control, and risk mitigation, kan? So this is the risk assessment part. Okay, risk analysis. Okay, risk analysis is your calculation. You calculate likelihood times severity, or some they calculate likelihood times severity times detection. You will have RPN number. So whatever number you have, and then you calculate, that is comes under risk analysis. You already prioritize your risk, and you already have a calculated value for your risk. And after that, you have evaluation. You have to evaluate your risk. Either it's under high risk, low risk, medium risk, or residual risk, or something like that. So you have to do risk evaluation. In some cases, you have to do risk benefit analysis. Okay, so that's a different part. Later I'll go for the risk benefit analysis. Okay, and then after that, we'll go for risk control. So here comes all your corrective actions, all your preventive actions, your risk treatments. And then from here, then you have to review it. So usually I will allow my staff to review in a meeting. I will ask them to present. So once they are presenting, the other staffs are allowed to give comments, opinions, and because risk management is not an individual task, it's a group task. You have to include as much as you can in that particular review, so that you have a lot of ideas, because some might have a different ideas which you really can use it. And sometimes when you are doing risk analysis, you have to interview your staff, because staffs are doing the works daily, so they should know where they can do shortcut, where they cannot do shortcut, and what are the things they tend to skip, and all these things when you interview them you will get. Then from there you can analyze your risk. That's why it's important to include your staff, even PPKs, everyone, because PPK is receiving samples at your counter. So include them in your risk analysis. Get their opinions, get their input in your risk assessment. So after that, when they review, and you have someone to approve your review, approve your risk assessment. So the one who can approve your risk assessment, you can put in your core procedures, you can put in your policies, who's supposed to approve all the risk assessment in your settings. Mainly we will put LD, because it comes under LD task in MS ISO. So once your risk assessment been approved, and then we will go for the implementation of the risk control. Whatever you proposed in your presentation, you're going to implement it. Okay, after you implement, the last part, you're going to monitor it, the effectiveness. It might be you can reduce the risk, or sometimes you cannot reduce the risk, it worsen the risk. Whatever risk control, sometimes it may worsen your risk, it may increase your risk from medium risk to higher risk. So doesn't mean whatever you propose might be right. So during your monitoring time, you feel that whatever we proposed earlier is not reliable anymore, you cannot use whatever you propose. So you can record it in your monitoring form. If you are doing audit, you can include in your report whatever control measures, whatever corrective actions that proposed during the risk assessment dated this was not reliable anymore because of what? So you justified why you didn't implement the risk control. Okay, so these are the in details that are take it from the ISO standards, so we can go in detail. So actually everything I already explained. So risk management plan, what you should have, the policies and so on. Okay, risk analysis also same. What you're going to analyze, like you want to identify the asset, the harm, then you calculate the risk, estimate the risk, and so on. So for the risk evaluation, then you calculate the acceptability of the risk, low, medium, and high, and perform risk benefit analysis. Okay, what is that risk benefit analysis? Always, most of us, we will stop at the evaluate risk acceptability. We very rarely will go into risk benefit analysis. Okay, this one we will perform when you have a risk that you cannot do anything. You cannot reduce it. You have to have that risk in your organization. When you cannot do anything with the risk. So in that case, you can carry out risk benefit analysis. So if let's say you perform with the risk and how much the risk will harm you, if let's say you eliminate the risk, what you will have, something like that. So outage, for example, I can give you one example. Like if let's say I explain, maybe it will be like too subjective to explain this. I give you one example. Safe O. So we are supplying Safe O without cross matching. So what is the risk? The risk is very high. So if let's say the patient who are receiving our Safe O might be rhesus negative group, but we are supplying all our Safe O's are O positive. But we won't know our recipient, our patient is O negative. So because we are giving without cross match. So the harm and the risk is high there. But when you calculate the benefit, it benefits outweigh compared to the risk, because the patient might be bleeding like very severe bleeding. So they need blood compared to we are thinking on reactions so on. So that's why we are giving the blood without the cross match, that is safe. So you cannot stop saying that safe is not safe, because the risk to patients are very high. That's why we cannot give. We cannot say that. Even though we know there is a risk in supplying safe we do that because the benefit is higher compared to the risk. So that is what risk benefit analysis. So in that case, you can write in the risk assessment part. This is we calculated the risk benefit analysis. So this is the risk that we can proceed in our system, something like that. Okay, and then for risk control, so we have control measures. So later I'll go one by one for risk control. So risk management review is we review in a meetings. Actually, I prefer to review in a meeting so that everybody can give their input. Okay, for risk monitoring, it's up to you which step you want to use. You can establish a surveillance system, audit system. So when you are doing audit system, you should have a checklist. Without checklist, you cannot do audit, right? So you must have a checklist. Then you go around the area where you did the risk assessment and you do your risk monitoring. You monitor internal indicators. You might have KPIs internally in your hospitals or internally under your cluster hospitals, or you might have in your lab internal indicators. So you can monitor that. Monitor external indicators, KPI and HPIA and all these things. Detect changes in risk profile. Okay, after you implement your control measures, whether your risk reduce or increase. So that is a risk profile. So you can see the changes in your risk profile. So for me, the easiest part to do risk monitoring is by using forms. That is, I feel that's easier for me compared to do establishing surveillance system. Other than that, I kept on monitoring my KPIs. So all these KPIs that related to our risk assessment, I will put behind the risk assessment. I'll attach everything under my risk assessment form. For example, let's say I'm doing risk assessment in critical value notification. But in unit, I also monitoring is as an internal indicator. Earlier, we have patient safety goal 8. Now we no more having patient safety goal 8, but still I'm monitoring it. So it becomes my internal indicator. So I'll attach all my records, like 6 monthly records, yearly records under the risk assessment form. of critical value notification. Okay, establishing context and risk identification. Risk estimation for hazardous situation. Okay, external quality assessment. Besides that, for hazardous situation, risk estimation. How are you going to estimate the risk? You can check on your EQA results. Sometimes your QC cantik saja, every month in saja, because you tak establish your mean. So you punya range terlalu besar, so all your QCs are within the range. So you tak boleh nak nampak whether there is a risk or not, right? So the second option where you can see your risk is your EQA programs. So EQA programs you boleh nampak ada tak outliers, ada tak dia lebih daripada APS, every month also lebih daripada APS, or 1 month, one month okay, 1 month tak okay. So you know where to check, like 1 month okay, 1 month tak okay, random. So you can check competency on your staff. So you can do this assessment on the staff's competency. If let's say every month also you have outlier higher than the APS from the manufacturer, then you should know is something wrong with your QC management, something wrong with your system, your analyzer, or anything. So you can go with lower SD, or maybe instead of you using single rule, you can go for multi-rule best guide. So something like that. That is for EQA. Relevant failure investigation. So machines or any analyzers, anything breakdowns kan, you kan akan record dalam buku. Kalau ada yang tak record, better to record all your machines breakdown, so that you know how frequent your analyzers breakdown, and then you know what to do. So maybe analyzers no more no more reliable to use unit setting because dah lama sangat dah. It's time for you to change. So you can carry out a risk assessment, and in that risk assessment you can propose for a new asset or new tender or new analyzer, something whatever it is you feel fit your organization. Use error and non-conformity reports. Okay, in lab kita kan ada NC forms, non-conforming work, semua kita ada form kan. So kalau you nampak every month also you have the same non-conformity, same NCW and same staff, then you know what to do. So you can carry out this assessment on particular NCs. Complaints received from laboratory customers. So yang ni kita boleh ambil daripada kajian kepuasan pelanggan that we used to do for our clinicians, POCT customers. Sometimes if let's say you are offering tests to other hospitals, and the other hospital also can give complaints kan. So you boleh ambil semua complaints tu, and then you can carry out risk assessment. Ni cara-cara you boleh cari topik lah for your risk assessment. Sometimes kita pun tak tahu nak ambil topik mana to do risk assessment. But whatever you are doing, try to comply all the three things lah: analytical, pre-analyticals, post-analyticals, as what it's required in our standard. So all these three things you should have in your settings. And then callback notifications. This is for reagents. So if let's say you will receive callback notification from companies kan. So from there you can calculate your risk. If let's say you continue using that reagent, and what will happen to the patient's result and so on. And last part, monitoring. So through your monitoring, actually you can identify a lot of risks that are associated with our lab activity. So from there you can get the idea on what topic for you to choose, one work process to choose for your risk assessment. Okay, so this is the scale that we use for our risk calculation. So this is a qualitative scale from MS ISO 22367-2020 standard. So this is a qualitative. So in Hospital Bentong, I didn't use qualitative scale. So I'm using actually this. For probability, for likelihood, I'm using semi-quantitative scale. And for severity, I'm using qualitative scale. So this semi-quantitative and qualitative scale actually from the standard. So whenever people ask me, you refer to there, then I will say I'm referring to the standard. So these are the scale, 1 to 5. Both also have 1 to 5. Okay, so then you know, right, like level 1 mean is unlikely, less than once a year. Number 2, remote, each year. Number 3, occasional, each month. Number 4, reasonably likely, that means each week. Number 5, frequent, each day. So kalau incident itu berlaku mengikut apa yang ada dalam description ni, then you can choose your rating here. Okay, and then for severity scale. Okay, severity scales, number 1, when you can choose number 1, when its category as negligible, temporary discomfort or inconsequential injuries. So you can use number 1. Number 2, marginal, temporary bodily damage or impairment and reversible with no medical intervention. Okay, so yang tu number 2. Number 3, significant, non-permanent bodily damage or impairment reversible with medical interventions. Operation ke apa-apa yang dia buat that adalah significant. And number 4 is a serious, permanent body damage or impairment. Okay, number 5 is critical, if any life-threatening injury or death, and you can choose number 5. Okay, so this is the risk matrix. So one part is likelihood. You can see 1 to 5. Another part is top part is the severity. So when you times and you will get this value. So this is what your risk that you can evaluate your risk. So all the green part 1 to 4 is in a green risk, it's a low risk. 5 to 12 is a medium risk, all this yellow color. And 15 to 25 red color is a high risk. So I only use 3 categories of risk. Some people have seen them, they're using orange color. In between of this yellow and red, they have in middle, they have orange color. So they categorize that as medium, high risk. So it depends on them. But I'm using whatever mentioned in the standard. So the MSISO 22367 mentioned only these 3 categories. So I fixed to these 3 categories, which is easier for me to refer. So this is the key points. Now, if low mean is considered as acceptable, and further reduction may not be necessary. So this one also from the standard, I'm not creating. Okay, and then 5 to 12, medium, acceptable risk if the risk is reduced as far as reasonably possible. 15 to 25, unacceptable risk, requires immediate action to control. Okay, this is for action part, not monitoring part. Okay, remember that this is action part, how you can take action, whether you want to take action or you just want to ignore it. So this action part. But for monitoring part, still you need to monitor even though the risk is comes under very low risk, because that is we call it residual risk. Still you need to monitor. So when you comes under monitor, still you need to have a timeline, either 6 monthly or annually you need to monitor. So this is the form. So anyone want the form, you can ask me, I can share with you. Okay, in the form I spell it out. Form of risk registry and prioritization. This is a risk registry form. So I mentioned this prioritization so that easier for me to convince the auditor. If they ask, did you prioritize your risk? Yes, I am using risk registry form to prioritize. Okay, this form is not only for lab, it's all the other units in my hospitals are using the same form, because it's a Jawatan Kuasa Pengurusan Risiko Hospital Bentong. Okay, so this is what are the topics under this form is first of all unit of 1 lah. Then risk description, give a brief summary of the risk. Impact description, what will happen if the risk is not mitigated or eliminated. Tulislah apa saja berlaku, mungkin delayed in results, might affect patient management. Okay, impact level low ke high ke, then you can look at the table, the scale. Probability level also the scale. Then once you already dapat impact level and probability level, you just time impact times probability and you will get the risk matrix here. And from here, mitigation note, what can be done to lower the or eliminate the impact or probability. So tulis je apa saja, no need to be very detailed, because in detail kita akan tulis dalam risk assessment form. This is a registry. So you just write what you want to do and who's responsible. Let's say I want to put myself as responsible, I'll put my name. But I think that I should put my HODs, I'll write her name in the responsible place. Okay, this is the grade. Penetapan grade risiko untuk penilaian, grading. Okay, this is what our cluster using. So under our cluster, we also using the same form. We call it risk grading form. Okay, risk grading form ni sama saja macam risk registry, but it's more detailed in the impact of risk, where you can see whether the risk is affecting manusia ke, reputasi ke, kewangan ke, operasi ke, undang-undang ke, whatever it is comes under this. Because when you check our standard, we have a lot of risk, financial risk, impartiality risk, conflict of interest, so much of risk. They have mentioned about so much of risk. So to be in safe side, we have a lot of partitions. So you can choose whatever you feel that fit for your risk assessment. Then after that, we will calculate here A, B, C, D, E kan. Impact dia berapa, you calculate tambah and then bahagi dengan N dia. Then you akan dapat tahap risiko and then you have color coding. So all these things actually we have a petunjuk which color code need to use and whatever everything. So we will use this grading. So either you want to use risk registry and prioritization or use risk grading, because the main function is to prioritize your risk only. So you can use either one. Okay, this is the risk management, risk assessment form. Okay, more or less everybody will have the same form kan. First, we will have a hazard or threat identification here. Then after that, we will evaluate the risk. We will find out the severity score based on possible injury. And then we will come out with a likelihood score. And then we will write down all the existing risk control here. Okay, S and L. So from the severity scale and from the likelihood scale, you will have your numbering here. Then later you calculate to get your risk level score as darab L. Then after that, you propose your risk control. Okay, this part is your expected outcome when you already implemented the risk control. So you boleh tulis lah siap-siap dekat sini. Then later on, during the monitoring part, then only you remark whatever you implemented actually fit or not as your expected outcome. If not fit, and then you can write remark here. Okay, so this is the monitoring form. So we have a 2 monitoring form. This is our old version form. In our older version form, you see there's a date. So that means whenever you monitor, you have to record it, the date. Because earlier I mentioned in our standard dimension, right? Whatever you did, you have to record whatever decision, whatever monitoring, whatever effectiveness that you are carrying on, everything you need to have a record. So that's why we have a date. So we will write out the date. When we did write out the date and done by who and what is the scale. Sama ada hijau ke, kuning ke, merah ke, we will write. Then after this, we kemas kinis, then we have a new form. Actually, both comes under cluster forms. These forms that we are using under our cluster lead hospital. Okay, the current form actually suits our current standard because we have a timely, yearly, 3 monthly, and 6 monthly. So because our core procedure, we have a timeline for our risk monitoring. So we follow whatever we mentioned in our policies. For yearly for low risk, 3 monthly for high risk, and 6 monthly for medium risk. So that's what we mentioned in our policies. So that's what our forms also following our policies. So everything same. You have to have a date and siapa yang melakukan monitoring part. Okay, so another monitoring form. Okay, this monitoring form very simple. Those who are very new to risk management or risk assessment, you can try with this form first. So this is what I'm implementing to other department in Hospital Bentong. Because other department, they don't have ISO. So they don't have to go in detail. So I'm just giving this very simple form for them. So they will write whatever is score and date of monitoring whenever they monitor. For example, when I say 6 monthly, you need to monitor. So they will have all the dates of 6 monthly. Every 6 months, they will have date here. And evidence of compliance. So first monitoring what they see. Second monitoring what they see. So they will spell it out everything. They will write everything, evidence of compliance. And later part, they will attach all the supporting documents. So this is a very basic monitoring. So this one also you may use if let's say you are baru start implement risk assessment in your settings. Okay, this one later I'll go with one example from Hospital Bentong. Okay, so this is we did for AKPK procedure of critical result notification. A group of MLTs perform this risk assessment because I don't have much SOs in my hospital, so I have to depend on my lovable MLTs to perform the risk assessment. So these are the MLTs who perform this risk assessment. Okay, first, mengenal pasti keputusan ujian yang melebihi critical value. So this is the activity. So possible injuries boleh terlepas pandang untuk notify disebabkan jumlah spesimen yang banyak, terutamanya pada waktu pagi, sampel dari OPD because we have OPD in our hospital and our samples are almost 350 in the morning. So their chances to miss out is higher compared to other times, because other times OPD closes, right? Like after 5 there is no OPD. So during the morning time, we are afraid that they tend to miss out the critical value notification. So severity 4. And then existing risk control that we have, critical value limit chart dipamerkan pada setiap komputer di section biokimia dan hematologi agar MRT sentiasa sema sebelum validate. Okay, yang ni kita dah pamerkan, saya dah lekat dah sebelah PC semua tu. Okay, so likelihood pernah kita miss out beberapa kali. Sebab tu kita letak 3. And then masa kita calculate 12. Okay, apa yang kita propose? So, ni yang kita propose in the meeting, because this risk assessment we presented in hospital level. So when I presented this in hospital level, so this risk control actually proposed by our pengarah. So pengarah say you should have a blinking features in chemolims pada sebut harga akan datang, so that my MLT knows that, let's say blinking mean my MLT knows that there is a critical value to notify. So that because my pengarah said that you have a lot of sample, your MLT cannot remember everything, because critical value pun kita ada banyak kan. Biochem ada banyak, hemato ada, and even micro pun ada kan. They say, how come you expect your MLT to remember everything? So they say it's better for you put it in your LIS. So yang ni kita bincang dalam LIS meeting, and my LIS vendor say they can have it. So kita sekarang ni dah ada this feature in my LIS. So every time there is a critical value, there will be an alarm on the flagging. So when there is an alarm, my MLT automatically knows that there is a critical value to notify to the ward. So yang ni semua sangat penting. That's why you have to present in front of your bosses, so that they will give you something that that you cannot do financially, management things that you cannot do. Only the management part, management teams can do. So that's why important for you to present in the meeting. So after that, now no more we are missing out. Because memang alarm kan, there is an alarm symbol. So no, my MLTs are no more missing out the critical values. Then kedua, panggilan telefon ke ward dan unit untuk notify critical value. Okay, dia punya possible injury, panggilan tidak dijawab selepas 2 kali dalam masa 15 minit. I think ini semua hospital pun ada benda yang sama kan. Kita complain kan, kita call ward tak angkat. So my MLTs they put lah, because they know right, only these people are complaining always to me. Saya dah call banyak kali dah ward tak angkat kan. So they put it in a risk assessment. And then existing risk control, panggilan akan dibuat ke atas doktor yang bertugas melalui operator untuk maklumkan critical value. So dia akan check doktor mana yang request, dan akan minta operator untuk sambungkan. Tapi yang ni pun tak jadi, sebab sometimes masa kita call doktor yang order, doktor tu tengah hantar case. So dia kata, I tengah hantar case, transfer case out. So dia tak boleh nak buat juga. And sometimes when we call, I say, pagi tu saya order, lepas saya dah pass over dah balik dah. So a lot of issues comes out when we try to connect to the doctors. So this issue also when I presented out in the meeting, and pengarah suggests you try to contact the sister on call of the ward after 5, or during office hours you try to contact the sister if panggilan tidak dijawab dalam 2 kali. So now no more issues. So panggilan tak jawab 2 kali, we straight away will inform the sister and we close. We validate the results. Okay, number 3, merekod critical value dalam LIS dan buku critical value notification. Terdapat beberapa staff tidak merekod dalam buku yang disediakan. So kalau dia tak rekod dalam buku, I cannot have the record. Sebab apa? I cannot extract the data from the LIS, even though I can note down in the LIS and inform to which doctor, what time and so on. But still, I cannot extract the data. My LIS is a very old version LIS, so I cannot do that in a data. So that's why I need to have a manual. But if my MLTs are not recording in my manual, it will be making my life hard. So what we do? We propose untuk mendapatkan features yang boleh extract data critical value notification dalam chemolim pada sebuah harga akan datang. So this one kita already dah dapat kan, sebab saya propose dalam meeting kan. Dan bosses semua nampak kan, I was struggling and all these things. Then they say our unit IT dapatkan kertas cadangan, dia buat kertas cadangan, dah submit to a higher, and we already dapat kelulusan for the upgrading of LIS. So this is what important to address risk assessment. When you're presenting something like very systematic way, there's a chances of you getting or to improve your system will be higher chance. This is the example of alarm lah. If let's say ABG and you see the alarm symbol here, right? So when there is alarm symbol here and my staffs know this ABG has other critical value, so they know to notify. Okay. Okay, this is a risk analysis tool. So this is a complementary tool. Kalau you nampak, yang ni saya ambil daripada MS ISO 22367. So it's a complementary tool. So kalau complementary tool, kalau you tak guna pun orang takkan marah you. Yang ni untuk risk analysis. Kan orang selalu cakap macam mana lah saya nak analyze risk kan. Kita dah tahu dah sekarang ni, kita dah tahu dah work process apa kita nak analyze. Tapi tak tahu macam mana nak analyze. So there are few tools and techniques that actually can help us. So there are 3 main techniques lah. Preliminary hazard analysis, fault tree analysis, failure mode and effect analysis FME. Okay, yang ni semua kalau saya pergi in detail to everything, memang saya tak ada masa lah. Sebab memang it needs 1 more hour for each and one technique. So I just go roughly saja. Kalau tak faham boleh tanya lah. Okay, preliminary hazard analysis, we call it PHA. Okay, so yang ni adalah prioritizing hazard or hazardous situation that can cause harm. So you may consider hazard or hazardous situation associated with material used or produce or reactivity, equipment used, operating environment, layout, interfaces among systems. So these are the few things you can check during your risk analysis. Ada ke tak material yang kita guna ni, stability dia macam mana, you simpan dekat mana, all these things. So like make your analysis more effective. Okay, yang ni dia punya checklist lah. So checklist ni you boleh bawa masa you nak interview your staff. Masa tengah interview your staff kan, you boleh tulis lah macam-macam. Tulis dekat sini, okay, hazard apa, investigation dia apa, you tulis je dekat sini. And then from there, you try to identify your severity and your frequency, and then you darab. Sama je dia punya calculation. But it's a checklist lah for you to help you for your analysis part. Okay, and then list known potential hazard. Daripada mana you boleh dapat potential hazard, literature reviews, you boleh baca punya previous projects, reportable events, previously ada complaint ke apa, semua tu you boleh check untuk your risk analysis part. Okay. Fault tree analysis, yang ni saya suka sangat-sangat lah, which memang sangat memudahkan hidup saya kalau saya nak buat risk analysis. Kita panggil dia fault tree analysis. That means I will try to find all the fault in my system, which is not good also lah. Every time you are finding the fault, but it actually really help when you want to do risk assessment. Okay, so fault tree ni dia ada diagram dia macam ni. Ada rectangle, then ada connector gates, logic gates, and then ada basic events. So you ada top undesired events, intermediate events, and basic events. This is fault tree analysis. I bagi satu contoh lah. Kalau you nak guna rectangular, fault in a box indicate that is a result of previous fault. Previous fault, you letak guna rectangular. Kalau you guna logical gate macam ni yang lengkuk ke atas tu, connect preceding fault with a subsequent fault that could cause a failure. That means or. 2, 3. Mungkin yang ni ataupun mungkin yang tu. You pun tak tahu yang mana satu. So or. So kalau macam tu, you connect fault tu gunakan or punya symbol. Kalau you ada 2 dan dua-dua pun you rasa akan cause that fault, akan cause that failure. So you use this symbol to create your fault tree. Okay, kalau root cause, you dah identify your root cause, that is bulat. And kalau diamond macam ni, need to be analysed further. Okay, these are transfer in and transfer out. So basically saya akan guna 3 shape saja. Okay, for example, one example lah. Okay, result out of specification. Okay, your results that you reporting out of specification. Mungkin you terima panggilan daripada clinician cakap, kenapa sodium ni untuk 2-3 hari low sangat-sangat, but patient clinically well. So kalau you dapat komplain macam tu, janganlah marah clinician. Kata saya punya QC okay je, ni doktor ni asyik nak komplain je, jangan marah. Sometimes there will be some difference, so you can check. So when you check, then there is a or kan, that means you pun tak tahu yang mana satu. Production. Production mean might be your reagent ke apa-apa comes under production dan manufacturer punya. Okay, lab error. And then others you tak tahu. So you tulis others saja. So lab error. Lab error might be your QC monitoring might not be effective ke apa macam tu lah. And daripada sini, you further out. Okay, you boleh further out untuk semua rectangle ni lah, tapi saya just further out untuk lab error saja. Sebab kalau saya nak further out for production, saya kena kacau company, saya kena call vendor ke apa kan. So for internal case something like this, I don't want to disturb vendor, so I want to try settle with my lab internally first. If I say internally everything right, then I akan pergi kepada production, kacau company kita. So for lab error, there are three things: outlier. There is an outlier in your results, or systematic. Systematic mean your machines lah, your QC, your calibration, your interfaces, IT kan, your alias from machine to alias interface, something, all these things comes under systematic. And random. So random error, maybe you change your operator, maybe you punya staff tak datang, you ambil lah daripada unit lain, section lain, letak dia dekat sana. Dia pun tak pasti sangat QC masuk ke tak, terus run the sample. So that comes under random. So from here, then I dah check tak ada outlier and I didn't change the operators. So apa saya buat, saya ambil systematic approach. From the systematic approach, I further down the tree. Okay, calibration ke, interface ke, other ke. So I tengok calibration okay saja semua. Then interface, oh ada issue. Dalam machine result dia lain, dalam interface, dalam Cambolim, dalam alias result dia lain. Jangan ingat benda ni tak berlaku. Benda ni berlaku dekat saya semalam. Bukan 2-3 tahun lepas semalam. Saya tengah validate HbA1c. Saya selalu validate guna chromatogram dia. Saya akan check. And I akan check dengan alias, baru saya akan validate. So dalam atas tangan saya 20.2. Tapi dalam sistem 19.9. Walaupun there is no significant error, but still is error. So when I check with the analyzer, okay, my staff repeated the sample. So the machine only update the first result. The second result, tak ada flow. So it's a system failure. So nasib baik saya nampak benda tu, I dapat correctkan. So this is the fault tree analysis. So how you create your fault tree analysis. So from here, then you akan dapat root cause dia. Root cause dia adalah interface alias problem. So I know how to contact the company to settle the interface. That means they must give the flow for the current result, not the first result. So for root cause, you boleh bulatkan dekat sini. Saya tak bulatkan lah. So yang ni ada lagi satu saya tak nak. Okay, failure mode ni satu lagi. Yang ni selalunya saya akan guna for new assays lah. Okay, ni FME ni ada 10 steps lah. So 10 steps ni you kena follow. So those hospitals are performing risk priority number RP, and actually they are actually doing FMEA table for your risk management. There is no wrong. When you do FMEA also, you already counter all the basic method in risk management. See, risk identification ada, risk analysis ada, risk evaluation and risk control the other in that 10 steps. So if you do FMEA table also, actually you are settling the whole risk assessment, risk management. So for RPN, so this is the risk matrix. For RPN, you have a detectability here. So previously, saya punya ada dua saja kan, severity and probability saja kan. So those hospitals are practicing detectability. They have one more scale. So they have 3 scales. So they will darab 3. Severity, darab probability, darab detectability. Sebab tu nombor dia besar-besar macam ni. Okay, so I just skim okay. Okay, so if FMEA table you nak buat, you pastikan borang tu you have all the 10 steps. Kalau tak ada, that means you are missing out something and it's not considered as a basic step in this management. So if any of your hospitals using FMEA type of finding RPN, make sure all these 10 steps are included in your form so that you won't miss out any of the actions. Okay, this is a risk treatment. For risk treatment, saya use ISO 27001 risk treatment. So there are 4 risk treatment that we can use. Establish a risk acceptance criteria for residual risk. So you kena masukkan dalam you punya policy. Your policy should have residual risk acceptance. That is for accept. Avoid, you eliminate the risk, which hardly we cannot do. Okay, transfer the risk. So for transfer risk, mainly kita guna for financial risk. Okay, kita beli insurance and all this. That means we are transferring our risk to the insurance company. So whatever happen, the insurance company will pay. Like how we are doing tender. If anything break down, we will have a agreement with the company. Within 2 hours, you must come and settle my machine. If not, all the sample you have to do and then you have to give me the result. Kan kita ada agreement, some sort of agreement in our tender kan. So that's all. We are transferring the risk to the manufacturer. So it will be the manufacturer's responsibility if the breakdown, they cannot repair the breakdown. And then the last is mitigate, which we use a lot in our risk treatment. So usually we will use accept, transfer, and mitigate. Okay, so this is how we monitor. Actually, I already informed you how we're going to monitor our risk management. This is from ISO 3100. Establish key performance indicators. So if you don't have KPIs, you establish your KPI. And then conduct regular risk assessments. Risk assessment ni bukan setahun sekali je buat. By right, you can do whatever times you suka-suka lah. You rasa saya nak buat, you buat je. Don't wait until setahun sekali je saya akan buat. 2 tahun sekali je saya akan buat. So you have to have a regular risk assessment and you have to spell it out in your core procedure, how frequent you will carry out your assessments. Review risk management framework, time to time review risk management framework. Mungkin ada updates. And then fourth is analyze incident data. So if you are the incident report, jangan marah clinician. It's actually they are helping you to improve our system. So these are the new requirement in MS ISO lah. So ada banyak clause yang they talk about risk assessment. And then some say that 86 times they talk about risk in the standard. Some say 87. So I'm not sure 86 or 87. I didn't count. I just want to tell that if someone is talking about 86 times about risk in our small standard, that means risk is very, very important that we need to address it in our system. These are the main references that I use for my presentation. With that, thank you. Saya dah lambat 4 minit. Thank you for that. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Komate. It's a very interesting and fruitful presentations of yours. So I'm sure that our attendees have eager with your questions. And there are some questions from the
Any questions? Then I scroll down from up. A lot of chat. Okay, can you explain more on RPN and the calculation involved? Okay, for RPN, that's why you have to use the scale. And I show you. I see. Share.
And Ms. Oi Pek Ying also say, please show us the example how to calculate the risk.
Okay, detection. Okay, this is the RPN. So for you want to calculate RPN, you have to have a detectability table. So detectability table is actually to focus on your proposed controls. Okay, yang severity ni adalah untuk impact kan. Probability berapa kali dah berlaku. Yang detectability ni, you are focusing on your proposed risk control. If let's say you are proposing some risk control and that risk control can detect the failure or not. So that is the detectability. You may detect or not. If let's say you think that the control cannot detect the failure, so it's effective, no effective can, so you just give 1. If let's say control almost always can detect the failure 2, and control may or may not detect the failure 3, control less likely to detect failure 4, control is ineffective, then you can give 5. So with this, you can calculate. Contoh saya nak ambil satu contoh yang senang saya nak calculate dah. Okay, 64. Kalau 64, 4 likely kan? 4 darab 4, 16. 16 darab 4, 64. So yang ni untuk RPN. Kalau you want to do RPN, you have to have a detectability scale. Okay, detectability scale ni, you tak perlu ikut whatever I mentioned here tau. You boleh ikut whatever you can extract from any literatures, any papers, any journals. So yang ni saya ambil daripada one of the journal. I cannot remember which journal. So I took it from there. This is the detectability. Or maybe I took it from some other hospitals. I'm not sure. I don't know whether I have the... This one is the severity. Detection level. So for the detection level, so you have a percentage. Okay, if let's say you want to use 5, very remote chance that potential hazard will be detected. Let's say you are using your control, your method, you can detect or not. So only the detection level is less than 10%, because you are focusing on your faults, whether your method can detect the fault or not. Your method can detect the failure or not. That is about detection. Boleh faham tak? Detection ni actually to detect failure. So kalau you nampak, your detection is a reflection of capabilities and effectiveness of your process control strategy to identify a failure mode. That's why those who are using failure FME table, their full term is failure mode. FME, failure mode, failure analysis. Betul kan? Failure mode and effect analysis, FME. So when you are using failure mode and effect analysis, FMEA table for your risk management, so actually you are more towards on identifying your failures. So that's where you can calculate your RPN. So you must have 3 things to calculate your RPN. So this is not mandatory, but if you are doing, this is advanced level. So you can proceed with doing. So those who are not practicing it, if you want to practice, very good, you can do. Because sometimes I will do that. I will do this especially when I have a new analysis. If let's say I'm introducing new assay, I'm introducing a new method, I will tend to use FMEA table, because I want to know that new method or new equipment. So what is the failure identification? I can identify the failure mode or not. So that's where anytime I'm introducing any new method in my sampling, I'll use this. So this one you can check here, because I never explained briefly on this, right? Failure modes and effect analysis, FMEA, is a step-by-step approach for identifying all possible and potential failures associated with a new design or process. So before you implement, it's better for you to have this. Okay, this is for RPN. So any other questions?
Okay, I'm sure. Okay, I'm sure the question has been answered, because there are many ways we can plan our risk assessments, right, Ms. Komate? Because
Yes.
it depends on what we are going to find and what is the problems occur, correct? So we can plan it accordingly to the examples that we've been she's been showing us just now. So another question is, what are the examples of internal and external indicators?
Okay, Kak Jin, the second question I understand. The first question is?
Yeah.
I cannot clear. The first question is what?
Your first question is...
Kak, your line is breaking, Kak.
All together, right?
Oh, okay.
Breaking. So the next question is, what are some examples of internal and external indicator in monitoring?
Okay.
In risk monitoring, the internal and external indicator.
Okay, I understand. So external indicators, very easy. You have your NI, National Indicator Approach, your KPI, Pathology, your KPI transfusion, and your FPI, MSQH. All these are external indicators. So you don't have to worry on this, because you need to submit the report to your unit quality. You have to submit report to your bosses can. So you don't have to worry on the external indicators. Internal indicators, you can have your own internal indicators in your settings. So like for example, in our hospitals, we are clustered under OSHA's hospital, Sultan Haji Hamad Shah. So we have a KPI cluster. So that one we consider as an internal KPI. So what is the KPI cluster? So we have 3 KPIs. So we are calculating 6 sigma for our IQC monitoring. So all our 6 sigma, we have a percentage of standard and all these things. So when I capai the expected outcome of 6 sigma, let's say I dapat less than 4. For 4 parameters, 4 analytes, I dapat for less than 4. So that is SIQ for me. So that is the internal indicators that is created by our cluster hospitals. Okay, and then in hospital settings, you can come out with your own internal KPI also. So for example, we have a KPI for returning of blood bags, for example, in a blood bank. So if let's say anyone is returning the blood bags to us, they already took from us, but then they return to us, but we cannot accept the reason. So one of the reason is patient refuse. So first of all, our question is, you should ask the consent from the patient before you request from us. But why you are doing terbalik the procedure kan? So that's why we come out with our own internal KPIs in our hospital. So we have our numerator, denominator. So you have to create a technical data sheet if let's say you want to have internal indicators. Okay, that's one. Another one, some of the indicators already dropped. For example, HPIA, FBC dah drop kan? Tapi still you can have it as your own indicators. You boleh guna sahaja yang tu. You use the same technical sheet. But it will becomes under your internal indicator because hospital is no more monitoring. KKM is no more monitoring. So it will be under your laboratory internal KPI. Patient safety goal number 8, critical value notifications. They no more monitoring, right? MPSG 2.0, the other critical value notification. But still I'm monitoring it. So I'll make it as an internal indicator. LTAT. Okay, nobody until now, we don't have any KPI for LTAT except for the AFB KPI 3.2. Other than AFB, we have a lot more tests in our hospitals. So you can have your own LTAT standards. So here in Hospital Bentong, for all the my standard must be more than 90%, and all the routine tests, my LTAT must be more than 80%. So this is the internal indicators that I'm monitoring. So all these internal indicators, macam mana you boleh ambil? Satu, KPI, HPI yang dah drop, you boleh ambil. Second, your objective. You kan akan ada objective in your unit 10. Okay, contohnya, saya punya all my equipment must have PPM within the schedule. So the standard is 100%. So that is my objective, my hospital objective. So saya can make sure all my objectives are I can measurable. So that's why always when you set your vision, mission or objective, try to make it as a measurable goals. So that easily you can calculate, measure, and easily you can make it as your internal indicators. Pahang ke? Is that clear? Am I answer your question?
I'm sure they understand.
Okay.
Okay, one last question. This is from the attendees, okay? Okay, it's from Mel. He says, selalunya satu risk boleh beri kesan kepada manusia, keuangan, reputasi, operasi undang-undang, and so on and so forth. So should we list this one by one based on the impact? So what do you think?
Okay, selalunya satu risk boleh beri kesan kepada manusia, keuangan, reputasi, operasi undang-undang. Should we list this one by one based on the impact? Yes, because our standard, kita dah banyak sangat risk associated, especially impartiality risk. I really do not know whether I have the impartiality slide or not. If I have, okay, I can share the impartiality slide. Okay, so when you're managing conflict of interest, there are few risks, financial, commercial, or personal relationship. So all these things actually, their weightage is more. So that's why you have to spell it out one by one. Okay, impartiality implementation. Okay, kalau financial risk, so apa yang sepatutnya you kena buat? So every risk, actually there are step by step that you can analyze one by one. So external pressures, kalau external pressure, any risk related to external pressure, and what are the things that you can check? Okay, this is for the risk related to impartiality. So that's why memang you kena buat satu-satu. Kalau rasa risknya terlalu rendah, contohnya kalau manusia kewangan reputasi, tapi dia tak ada kena-mengena, tak ada kaitan dengan kewangan. So mungkin you boleh combine dia dengan reputasi ke, sebab kewangan mungkin reputasi image ke apa, mungkin you tak ada, customer akan complain kalau hospital ni benda ni pun tak ada ke apa kan. So you may combine, but my advice is I will ask my staff to spell it out one by one. So semua tu you kena letak, sebab our standard is already mentioned that all the risks that associated with everything like non-conforming work, potential risks in your results, pre-analytical, analytical, everything you need to explain one by one. Okay?
So it means that all the list should we should calculate the impact, right? So we can choose and we can identify which one is the failure. Okay. So I think our webinar session is come to an end. It's almost 12:20 already. Okay, so thank you, Ms. Komate, for your interesting presentation today. So I hope everybody will get all the information they needed, or if any questions needed, you can just go straight for Ms. Komate
Yeah, they can
ask her
WhatsApp me
yourself. Okay.
I can share my number here.
She's share the number on the chat box.
Oh yeah, I cannot write.
Okay, for the participants, please don't forget to fill out the form for your attendance, okay? And it should be ended around this afternoon also, okay? So I'm Jane on behalf of the PPSM Webinar Committee. I'm grateful for your time spent in this talk. So until we meet again in the next webinar, I hope so. So wishing everybody 新年快乐，万事如意，恭喜发财。Thank you all. Bye.